It's all about safety. In real life, you make some faults only one time. In the simulation, you start your program again and again and again. Actually, you're immortal and you don't have to care about safety. But one of the major issues for traffic patterns, of course, is safety. It's better to learn from other one's faults because you may not have a second chance. Welcome back to a second part of traffic patterns, and we start with an overview of the standard traffic pattern as we discussed in the last video. The standard pattern for airplanes are left-hand patterns, and in the US and only in the US, not in Germany, helicopters may fly right-hand pattern. Of course, if there is an other information available or other procedures in effect, so you have to follow the procedures published in the airport facility directory or in the information about the airport. But in the US, you don't have to care about traffic patterns when you fly a helicopter. So what we do right now, we're still in the Tbilisi and we lay our standard traffic pattern over the Tbilisi airport. We have the left-hand traffic for the 270 runway, and there may be left-hand traffic, right-hand traffic for helicopters on the other side, on the north side of the airport. But because of the town and the buildings, maybe there are no traffic pattern on this side of the runway, so there will be right and left-hand traffic on the south side of the runway available. For this case, we fly without tower, so we ignore the tower right now. So it's an uncontrolled airport, just for that example. Just to show what it's all about, there are two other aircrafts in the traffic pattern right now. So there will be a white Bell UH-1 and an Albatros, both flying in the traffic pattern. The UH-1 shooting approaches, and the Albatros stays in the traffic pattern and circles around. So we approached the airport from east or northeast, and it starts 10 miles out. 10 miles away from the airport, we have to monitor the CTAF frequency, Common Traffic Advisory Frequency. That's the frequency available on uncontrolled airports in the US. And if they're not available, you maybe get the information about weather and traffic from the flight service station as well. And if not, you will broadcast your intentions and your position over the Unicom frequency, even if you get no contact on the other side. So it's an uncontrolled airport. So in the US, you can fly to uncontrolled airports, even if you don't have a radio. You just have to make sure there is no other traffic you get in trouble with by visual maneuvers or light signals or something like that. In Germany, you do not fly to an airport when you have no radio contact. Even on uncontrolled airports, it sounds strange, but you have to have radio contact and at uncontrolled airports as well. You get the info on the other side, and you get the weather and traffic information from the info station in German airports. And if you don't get contact, you're not allowed to land. So in the US, you make your initial call 10 miles out, in Germany 5 miles out, and you say your position, your altitude, and your attention, in our case for landing. So 5 miles out or 10 miles out, helicopter blah 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 for landing. And what we do right now is we make an overflying midfield crossing just to see what is the traffic. Maybe we can see some traffic in the traffic pattern. Actually, I told you there are two airplanes or aircrafts in the traffic pattern. Right now I have nothing inside, so maybe we can find one before we crash into. So radio contact will not a bad thing, because you may get the actual QNH of the airfield, so you can adjust your altimeter setting to the local pressure, and to make sure your altitude reading is correct. In the US, you may get contact to flight service station if there is no Unicom frequency available, and if not, you can make a try and fly midfield and get a look on the segmented circle to get to traffic pattern information and stuff like that. I was a short time on the map just to see where the other traffic is, but there is no traffic inside. So it should be right now on the turn to base. It's called turning to base. So that's the second waypoint. It should be in the red shaded area, but I just see nothing. Yeah. So and that's maybe that should be the white Bell UH1. But of course, because of the radio announcements and his position announcements, I can be sure there is not in my way. So it's on final right now and at 1,900 feet altitude. So we are well above at 3,500 above the traffic pattern altitude. And let's get a different look from behind. And okay, right now from the right we can see the albatross. So yep, we make it a little bit clearer with a red mark. The albatross is crossing from right to left. In the helicopter, of course, I couldn't see them, but again, it's on the left side right now. It's fast. It's small and fast, but it's well below. Now we start turning into the teardrop. That's our entry into the 45 entry to downwind. But in this case, of course, it's not a back turn maneuver. We just fly a half circle, and when we can get a closer look over the the downwind leg, and we can see there is no other traffic in the downwind leg, we start our descent and flying direct into downwind with a right turn. And descending to traffic pattern altitude. The helicopter traffic pattern altitude, of course, it's 500 feet above ground level, 500 to 800 feet of ground level. The albatross is right now on the extended center line on the departure leg. So it's far away, so we are safe right now. And the UH-1, as we have seen right now, it's still on the runway. That's a bug in my program. It's just circles 2 times and ignored the third one. It's just stays on the runway. But that's a good idea for this example. So when reaching the turning point, we turn into base. We make our position announcement. Right now we are on left downwind. So when reaching downwind altitude, we announce our altitude or position in the traffic pattern. Now we're turning base, and that's the time for the announcement. Turning base and descending for landing. Visual marker for the turn into the final leg is the inner marker. Let's get a look from the inside of the cockpit. And I went over the inner marker, so we turn left into final. That's maybe our next announcement. It's helicopter blah 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 turning final for runway 270. So it's clear for all the other traffic where our actual position is right now and our intention for landing. So because there is the Bell UH-1, the white one is still on the runway, we get a little bit in trouble. So when we are on an airplane, so we have to make a go around right now. So but in the helicopter we slow down or maybe land at the beginning of the runway, or we can land in the grass or something like that. In this case we get a little bit closer to the helicopter on the runway. And the situation right now, this is something that shouldn't happen because of the danger of crashing into each other. So it's good for this example. So let's dance. And because it's a bug. The white UH-1 doesn't leave the runway, so we fly over it and go back into the traffic circuit. And on our way, we get a look on our left window, and we can see the albatross behind, crossing from right to left on his downwind leg. So we can sure there is no traffic in front. So that's a picture we never want to see. So there's a different approach into the traffic pattern available, as we talked in the last video as well. It's a long final. You get on final more than 4 miles out of the airfield, but there are maybe some difficulties. It's a tricky thing. Of course, if there is someone in the traffic pattern don't have a radio or don't make position calls or something like that, you may be responsible for everything that happens, because you don't make a midfield crossing, you don't make sure there is no other traffic in the traffic pattern, you have no information about traffic circles and stuff like that. So you can get in trouble if something goes wrong, especially in the United States if you fly a long approach to a runway. And of course there should be the UH-1 and the albatross in the traffic pattern, but right now I can't see any one of that both. So we get closer to the runway. Okay, that's waypoint 2. That's the turning point for the UH-1 turning base. So, but I didn't see it coming in the downwind leg. But right now it comes from the left. So that's the big problem with long approaches, long finals. From the cockpit view, maybe you don't see the aircraft coming from the left. Maybe you're too high, a little bit too high, and you jump over it from a different perspective. It maybe looks like this. You jump over it, and maybe you crash into it. In this case, I'm actually waiting for the aircraft coming from the left, and I heard the announcement, turning base, so I can avoid to crash into. And in the helicopter you have the chance to switch over to the taxiway, or you can switch over to it's the second runway. You can land in the grass. There are many options in a helicopter. In an aircraft you have to avoid the other aircraft, and you make a go around. You can't switch over to the second runway, because the second runway may be closed because of some damages on the runway or something like that, and you have no idea about it because you don't make a midfield crossing, you don't have seen the segmented circle, you cannot be sure that the second runway is usable for airplanes. But in a helicopter, no problem at all. You fly to the runway, you get a closer look and land, or you can land in the grass or anywhere else. So. On the other hand, if there is a tower available, it's a little bit different. For Tiflis Airport, there is only Delta airspace on the chart, so you have to call the tower before entering the Delta airspace. So, and there is no traffic pattern or stuff like that. But if you have contact with the tower and you get cleared to enter the Delta airspace, so you can fly to the airport, and you have to follow the instruction given by the tower operator, the controller. So on the other airport, in Kutaisi Airport, there is a VFR approach chart available. There is the Delta airspace as well, but there are entry points on the map, and in real life you have to call the tower before reaching 5 minutes or 5 miles before reaching the entry point, and you have to get ATIS information. That's automatic terminal information service. That's information about weather, runways, and other things necessary for landing. All the important information for the airport, you get it from an automatic station on a special frequency. And if you have your initial contact with the tower, you confirm that you have got the actual weather, the actual 80s information, because you know the actual letter, the signing letter or the marking letter, Charlie whiskey or something like that, to prove that you have the actual information. So when flying to the airport, you flying over the entry point. If you get the clearance from the tower, you fly along the published routes and get to the airport, maybe direct to the runway, direct to the apron or to the heliport, or maybe sometimes in a holding pattern, because if there is another other traffic and the other traffic has the right of way for any reason, so you have to wait in the holding pattern or in the traffic pattern. But the important thing is you have to follow the instructions given by the controller in the tower. So in Germany, in Europe, or anywhere else, you have to hear the words "you cleared to enter the airspace via entry point blah blah blah." In the US, it's different. For Delta airspace, you only have to establish radio contact. That means you call the tower, naming your call sign and your altitude, your position and your intention, and if the tower calls you back, you may fly into the Delta airspace without any further permission, except the tower told you to stay out of the airspace for any reason. But if you have established radio contact and you get a readback from the tower, you're allowed to fly into the airspace, and you don't have to wait. In Germany, you have to wait until you get the clearance. It's all about safety. It's a good thing, a traffic pattern, to know what it is, what it's called, and how to use it. So thank you very much for watching. Maybe you will be back at task 3.3. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. I will be glad if you subscribe to the channel, and maybe see you next time. Thank you very much.